And he
Give us one moment, everybody. We're having some technical difficulties.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of technically Ask the Night Live, but today we have not nights, we have mods. And today we have Master Lyon and we have, I believe, Master John Drake. I'm terrible with titles, but Master John Drake from down south and Master Lyon from up north, so all over the place. We're really excited for you guys to be here. We're really excited for everybody to join us in the comments. And, this is super new for us because, I don't think I've ever poked anybody with a rapier. So I'm excited to ask some questions. Let's go ahead and start with Age Before Beauty. So I believe that's you, Lyon. Go ahead and tell us who you are, where you're from, how long you've been fighting, and a little bit about yourself.
I don't know if we have that much time, so I'll make it really short. So my first exposure to the SCA was the early 90s. Actually not too far from where I am now in Billings. So I'm located in the upper part of Artemisia. I call it the Highlands of Artemisia. So where I started was about 150 miles west in Bozeman, which is Silver Keep. That's kind of where I began my journey. A few years later, I ended up at an Estrella War, and someone introduced me to rapier, and that was it. I was hooked. I was in. And I've taken a couple breaks, but I've always come back. And this last go around, this last break, I came back, and a couple of my friends said I've come back with a vengeance. I don't know if that's quite correct or not, but I came back with a different take, a different attitude, a different outlook, just on everything in general, and just wanted to get back to the community and get back to my friends and do the thing that I like to do. Other than that, I'm still kind of a baby mod. I am number 14 in my kingdom. So there's two others after me, and there's one that just got tapped. So in my kingdom in Artemisia, we're growing. The circle is growing, which is nice to see. I'm one of two in my particular area. So we're kind of spread out in this part of the kingdom. Boy, I don't know what else to say other than I'm happy to be talking to you again, John. And John, happy to be talking to you again.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and the beauty, Master John Drake.
Yeah. I started in the SCA when I was 14 in 2007. And I pretty much started doing rapier right away. So I started in the as a youth rapier fighter. And in Onstore at the time, you could when you were 16, you could like age up and fight on the adult field. So I did 2 years of youth fighting, and then from 16 until the current present, I've been doing fighting with all the adults. My brother and I kind of grew up fencing together in the SCA, and he's 2 years younger than me, and he's also a master of defense as well, which was kind of nice. So yeah, and I'm from Onstore, so I live in Austin, Texas, which is kind of probably one of the best places to be in Onstore for a rapier. Like, there's a ton of rapier fighters. We have like, I think we have 5 or 6 mods who live here. Some of them aren't active, but a good 4 or 5 that are active at any time. Before the mod existed, we had like a dozen white scarves. Oh, we still have a dozen white scarves, but when that was the highest level award, we had a ton of white scarves. I got my white scarf when I was 20 in 2014. I got my mod when I was 22 in 2016. I was the 11th mod at Onstuara.
Okay.
But we kind of made a bunch right at the beginning. Or we have a lot of rapier. Like Onstuara has a long history of rapier. Like we're the kingdom that created the white scarf. So we've been the white scarf's been around for 40 years. It was started here. So we have a long history of rapier in this kingdom. So we have we probably have more than, I think we have one, I don't know exactly the numbers. We definitely had more mods than a lot of the even kingdoms that had bigger populations than us. But I think we're like somewhere in the top 5 number of mods now. I think in like in the mid 20s or 30s now. A bunch of them have moved out of kingdom, but that's kind of my story, I guess.
All right. And now from the way that it was explained to me was that you are one of I guess they said one of the 3 best rapier fighters in the known world.
That has been said about me. Yes, that has been said about me. Yeah.
You would say it would
I've
be
heard that.
Yeah.
I did just win the Rose Tourney at Gulfport, which had 140 people in it.
Congratulations on that. By the way.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of success. I've won our kingdom's biggest tournament is Queen's Champion. I've won that 3 times. I've won our kingdom's cut thrust championship 6 times. I've won the biggest tournament at Penzig a couple times and at Gulf Wars once. And I've traveled. I really like to travel, so I try to travel all over the known world and try to fence all the best people, and I do pretty well. So
that's awesome. That's pretty awesome. Okay, we'll start with you again. What keeps you coming back to the SCA?
Me?
No, John Drake.
Oh, sorry.
For him.
The community, really. I mean, like, I love fighting, obviously. Like, the moment I picked up a rapier when I was 14, I knew that it's what I wanted to do forever. It was my favorite thing. But really, the community is what keeps me coming back, right? Because there's days where you're tired, or maybe the fencing is stale a little bit, or whatever. But if your friends and really, for me, it's like chosen family are there, that's what keeps you coming back to the SCA, is the community. 100% more than anything else. It's really, the SCA is really a social club that happens to do medieval stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love fighting, so that also brings me back.
Gotcha. What about you, Master Lyon? What keeps you coming back?
Well, I mean, I could honestly parrot what Master John Drake's saying. Definitely community. Definitely fighting. But one of my biggest things about the SCA is I'm big on manners. I'm big on courtesy. I've met a lot of people who are obviously good manners, very courteous, very honorable in the SCA, and I like to think that they take that into the world with them, and that becomes infectious, and it actually makes the place around them better. So that's kind of what keeps me coming back, is to kind of check in and be reminded that there really are people that are honorable and courteous and good manners, and that they're really out to look out for others as well as themselves, obviously as a community, but they're just good people that have found a place to hang out with their friends and other good people, and they take that back into the real world with them. That's actually what keeps me coming back.
That's a very interesting answer. I don't think we've ever gotten something like that. The idea of looking for courteousness, or what we would say chivalry in the world, and then bringing that back with us. That's really cool. Let's see. Have we? No. Okay. Any more? No. They're not going to feed me questions. What has been your biggest hurdle in your fencing career? That's perfect.
Hey, John, how's that script coming for you, huh?
What script? You're supposed to be feeding me questions. Anyway, no, that's perfect. This is actually one of the questions that we usually ask. What has been the biggest hurdle in your fencing career? Master Lyon, you go ahead.
Me first?
Yeah, you go.
Not doing it enough. Not enough practice.
Okay.
Not enough fighting. Not enough time. I mean, like seriously, that my biggest hurdle. Probably my biggest hurdle is the time. The time in. I could say I wish that I had this amount of time or X amount of time, or I wish that I had not wasted this time. But really, what it comes down to for me is my biggest hurdle is the time that I have. I've put everything that I can into it, and I want more time to do it. I guess that could be a hurdle. You know what I mean? That's my first one. There's several.
Master Drake.
It's got to be the mental side of fighting. I used to get really, really nervous in tournaments, and I really struggled with that. Like I would do great in practice or in pickups. I just, do really awesome there, and then I get into a tournament and I would just not fight my best, and that was super, super frustrating for me, especially when I was younger. So I had to do a lot of research into sports psychology, and I talked to all the great fighters that I admired on both fields. Honestly, I talked to all the great fencers, but also all the dukes and stuff, and just talked to them about like how they got their head in the game, and I really had to work on that because that was not a natural thing for me. I would get so nervous, so I definitely struggled with that, and I think I've done pretty well at overcoming it, but it was a big hurdle for me.
Okay. So, kind of going off of that, who would you say would be your boogeyman, essentially? Like a fighter that you go up against that you just, for some strange reason, they always have your number.
Me? It's got to be Toritaka. I think he's the best, the actual best fencer in the SCA. And he's the pinnacle that I think we all are trying to get as good as he is. So definitely him. Yeah, I've beaten him a couple times in tournaments, but he's beaten me way more than he definitely has the edge on me by a lot. And so he's like
that he moves like one too.
Yes. Yeah. So he's the guy. I think that definitely has my number, and I think he has the whole society's number, honestly. So I think we're all chasing him a little bit to a certain extent.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair.
I'm a black tiger, so I'm obviously going to say it's Toritaka. However, I have not had the opportunity to fight him like John has. So I'm going to say that my boogeyman is actually one of my oldest friends in the SCA, is now Master Kanahar. Him and I go back and forth, and it gets to be one of those things where it's just like, oh, I got to fight this guy, really? I just fought him a couple. Well, let's see, maybe a couple weeks ago, and I actually got him. So yay! Now I'm going, oh God, here we go again. It's just going to be, and I like that my boogeyman keeps coming back to me, and I keep coming back to him. It's been kind of a thing for a long time for the two of us. So in a way, that's my boogeyman, but it's that push. It's that, hey, you're going to do this today. Yep. And then you do it and you're like, okay, great. And you're like, now we're going to meet him again, and it's going to be this thing all over again. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with him.
So I'm pretty sure you haven't taken it's a provost, right? Master Lyon?
I have not. No, I have not.
Master Drake, have you taken a provost yet?
Slightly complicated. So before the mod existed, I was a White Scarf and I took cadets, and I had two. One got his White Scarf and is now a Master Fence. One of my other cadets moved to the east and they have not gotten their grant or their mod yet. And then I have another, but I still use the term cadet, even though I'm having taking students as a peer. So like we don't, unfortunately, the mods don't all agree on what to call our students. But essentially, I have 2 provosts basically right now. And both of them have moved away. One lives in the east, one lives in Meridies. And then I have a former student who is now a mod.
Okay, so Master Drake, what are some things that you personally would look for in a cadet or a provost when taking one on?
So there's a couple things. I have to believe that I have to get along with them. It's kind of the first thing. Like we have to kind of have they have to be able to understand what I'm saying. The way I communicate has to work for them. So we have to kind of develop a rapport in that way. And it has to be someone that we're both willing to spend a lot of time with each other, because otherwise it won't work. And then I have to believe that they can make it, right? Like this is someone who, if they put the work in, can achieve peerage.
Okay.
And that I have to think that I can't have something to offer to them, like that my help will get them on that road, right? Because I could think someone has the potential, but I could think that I'm not the right person for them. So it has to be a combination of those things. And one of my joke answers is someone that is willing to drive to events with me, because I like to have company when I'm road tripping. So
that's a good point. Yeah, it's very important to find somebody that's able to speak Drakenese.
Yes.
Because I know Annora has had lots of problems with people giving her advice, and then I think her husband has to come in and be like, well, this is what he's explaining. Oh, okay. And then she gets it. But so taking that question and going over to Master Lyon here, what do you think you would be looking for in someone that you would want to be taking as a provost, or your first provost, or whatever?
Definitely the commitment. That willingness to be there and want to learn, obviously. Definitely a good rapport with them for sure. But mainly somebody who is going to want to be there for the long haul, and somebody who is going to want not just to learn just the fighting end of it, but the everything else, the why we're here, why we do what we do, how we're contributing to a community, and not just the rapier community, the community at large in the SCA. That's not everything that I can teach, and I have to understand that, I can't teach all of that, but I can find someone that can show them. Do you know what I mean? So I have to have them willing to understand that it's going to be me pointing them in a direction sometimes, not just me teaching them everything. So that's a big thing too, so that they understand that I have my moments where I might stutter or stumble a little bit, but what I mean to do is, if I can't find you the answer, I will definitely point you in the direction of someone who has it.
Okay.
So that willingness to go get it is like I said, the commitment, that willingness to go get the answer when I point them in that direction. That's something that I think is fair, feasible.
All right. So kind of turning back on you guys, when you were at your vigil, Master Drake, you had a vigil too, right?
Yep.
Okay. So Master Lyon, at your vigil, what was the best piece of advice that you got at your vigil?
What was the best piece of advice, or the piece of advice that I got a lot? Sorry.
Which one stuck with you the most? Either your favorite, or whichever one you remembered the most, or whichever it is.
Well, I'm not going to name names, but the best piece of advice that I got was, this person in question told me that it's one thing to have this put around your neck. It's another thing to have been doing this for X amount of time. Don't let this get to your head.
That's a good point.
And that sticks even to this day. It's for me, it's a matter of not letting my head expand because this someone gave me a white collar. It's more a matter of I'm still in that what can I do for everybody mode. And that's why that is stuck, because they said, so I'm still in that mode where what can I do for these people? What can I do to help out? How do I add to the community? That sort of stuff. And that's the best piece of advice that I would give, or that's honestly the best piece of advice that I've really ever gotten in context of the SCA, what we're doing and how we're doing it.
I like that. I didn't know if Hrothgar had went in and given you any advice, because Hrothgar is really famous for his advice when he talks to people at his video. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, inside joke. So, Master Drake, what was the most memorable or the most important piece of advice that you got during your vigil?
There's really two pieces. One is probably kind of a generic piece of advice, but it just I remember it struck me was when they said, remember that you'll be the first Master Defense someone meets. So you'll be someone who represents the whole order to a new person who comes into the SCA. And it's a very common piece of advice, I think, but it's very sobering when you hear that, because it's like, oh fuck, like I have to be the guy to represent, and I think it's good to remember that, because like you want to always put the order and the whole SCA, make sure that you're giving a good presenting that well, representing well. And then the other piece of advice, and this is a piece of advice I've actually stolen and I give when I go individuals, was to enjoy it while it was new, because at a certain point you're just being a Master Defense or whatever period you have just becomes normal and just part of who you are in the SCA. But for like the first few months, it's really cool when you're fighting in your first tournament and you hear the first time you get your name heralded in is Master so and so, like it's kind of fun, and people when they first use your title, and when it's new and shiny, it's really fun, and you should enjoy it while it's like that. And I thought that's stuck with me pretty well a lot. So
that first time you hear it, it just gives you the fizz.
It does, yeah.
A little tingle.
Yeah.
Love it. So I was going to ask a follow. Okay. So with that, in all the different aspects of being a mod, what do you think is the most important aspect?
That's a super hard question. I think and people who know me are not going to be surprised with the answer. I think at the end of the day, it's a fighting award, and so I think that you have to be able to fight well.
Prowess.
So yeah, but I will say that I don't. If you're a good fighter, but you can't teach someone else to fight, then you're a dead end and you're useless to us.
Ooh.
So to me,
I like that.
The combination of fighting well and teaching other people to fight well, that's the core of what our order is about, and that's what I look for first. I mean, obviously, if you do those things but you're an asshole, then it doesn't matter. Also, but if you can fight well and teach other people to fight well, then you're the kind of person we should be looking at.
Okay, Master Lyon, what do you think is the most important aspect?
Can I say two? Because he said one already.
Yeah,
he said one already. So, I like to think that ours part, the larger part, or a large part of it too, is not just prowess, but is lead by example. So, I mean, what it comes down to is, and I'll just put it this way: we're the right hand of the queen. There's no, there's no doubts about that. We're the right hand of any queen that is current queen or past queen or baroness or past baroness. We're their right hand. So we're there to, protect them, and that is our job. So, leading by that example, showing that example, even to new people in the rapier community, I think that is leading by example is our primary as well, is prowess. So all the things that we can do to make prowess the top part of it, and then using that prowess as I guess I don't want to say protection, but using that prowess as an example of it's just really hard to put it in a way that I can. Using that prowess as an example of how we serve our queen and our baronesses. That's probably the best way I could put it. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 in that way. But yeah, I would agree with John that prowess is one of the main things, and then the leading by example was also one of the main things.
Absolutely. So this question was posed to me by a friend, and I think it's a very interesting question, and so I specifically wanted to make sure that I asked it. But especially considering now that rapier has become a peerage within the SCA, do you think that the rapier community in itself has kind of changed, and has it kind of changed for the better or for the worse, or what's your views on that? And we'll go ahead and start with Master Lyon.
Okay, so sorry if I get long-winded with this. I hate to sound like this guy, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. When I started with rapier, one of the weirdest things was this thing that came in that was called a Schlager blade.
I know that one. That sounds so familiar.
Well, so the changeover between the épée and the foil into the Schlager blade, that was the weirdest thing. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I started, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is never going to work. It's going to change rapier. It's just going to make it. It's going to be bad." And it turned out to be good, really good. So I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of things over the years in the SCA, not just in this kingdom, in other kingdoms that I've lived in, that I've traveled to, where I get to take in all the changes that were taking place in the rapier community. And one of the ones that is always on the top of my head is how we interact with the rest of the SCA. Oftentimes I've heard that the rapier community is like the redheaded stepchild or the black sheep, or we're not as good, or I've never agreed. I've never sat down and said to anybody, "Yeah, I think you're right about that." I've always been very pro everything in the SCA as far as rapier is concerned. It's just it fits. For me, it fits, and that's the way I explain it to everybody who would have that commentary about rapier, that we're not as good, and then there's the comments like the wire weenies and stuff like that, and I just pass on listening to it, because it's most of the time it's in good fun. I've only ever had a couple instances where somebody has stopped me and said rapier's not going to last, and it's just going to be this passing thing. And if I think back hard enough on it, every time I've had that conversation, it's when something significant has happened in rapier. The beginning of the white scarves, and then when we got up to mods, and pretty much everything that's taken place in between, every major change that I've ever seen taken place in rapier in the SCA has come with a little bit of that. Well, this isn't going to last. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And even the little things like, I remember when we started using RBGs on a regular basis, and it's a very little thing, but it's something significant when, they create rules for not taking X amount of RBGs on the field because, it's a new thing and everybody is shooting a white scarf whenever they can. So, do you know what I mean?
So that just sorry to interrupt, just so that everybody knows, RBGs are rubber band guns. Yeah, we got to make sure everybody
So-
knows that it's simulating
Yeah.
firearms.
It fires a medical tourniquet. And
Mhm.
depending on where you're at, it can hit pretty hard, or how tight you wind it. But so those little changes like that, and I don't mean to ramble, but I think that's a great question, because
Mhm.
I think all those little changes have actually brought rapier to where it is today. If you had told me that there's going to be a peerage, if you would have come and found, unfortunately for you would have found the 19 or 20-year-old version of me and told him, or managed to catch him long enough to tell him that there's going to be a peerage for rapier, he would have looked at you and went, no, not going to happen. So in a lot of ways, I feel with those changes, I evolved with those changes. So I have an understanding of it. Now I can put my finger on it and go, I can see how that happened.
Master Drake, same concept of question.
I think that the mod has changed things internally in the rapier community. I think it has changed it some, but it's kind of been minimal. Like, we knew who the leaders of the community were, and it's kind of just what we call them. Like, we used to call them dons, now we call them mods, right? I think that the mod has helped the rapier community a lot in the way we're perceived by the rest of the SCA, and given us more legitimacy. And so I think that we can go and walk and be treated more equitably with the other peerages and the other activities, right? Because we can achieve the same rank. So I think that's been a huge benefit for us, and I think it's been a benefit internally as well. It's just been subtler because everyone kind of knew who the people were, right? It's like you knew that that white scarf was a peer, even if you didn't have the peerage, right? I'm not saying all the white scarves were peers. I'm saying that those white scarves that acted like peers and are now mods, they were been leaders of the community forever, but now they can be given the recognition that they really deserved from the rest of the SCA, and I think that's helped a lot. And I think it's made us, it's also forced us to mature a little bit, and kind of be a little bit, when we're judging candidates and stuff, be a little more hold people to a higher standard, and that's been good. So I think it's been a good change. It's definitely been very disruptive, but I don't actually think that's been all bad. So I think it's been mostly a great change, and I think it's been helpful to us.
Okay. Well, we're at that halfway mark, so we're going to start taking questions from the audience. We've got 3 starred questions here. From David Mackeegan to Master Drake. Now that you won Rose, is there anything left on your rapier bucket list?
I was just asking this question earlier. Sorry.
Yeah. Before we were live. Yeah. Not personally, really. I'd love to win it again, obviously, or win other tournaments, but that's really everything. That was the last tournament that I had not won that I really wanted to win. So I would like to do to still work with my students and have more students, so have them achieve their goals. And I'd like to create more content, more educational content, more, because I have some YouTube videos out there about techniques and stuff. I'd like to make more of those. I'd like to maybe write some stuff, even a book maybe someday. I don't know, but from an actual personal accolades, achievement, I really have done it all. Not that I want to keep doing it, but I've pretty much got all the tourney wins I need.
This was a request from Ulrich von Tolstadt. You had mentioned reading sports psychologies. They were asking, do you have any good reads off the top of your head, or any place that you'd recommend looking for that sort of thing?
Oh, not off the top of my head. I would, a great place to start is to just watch some interviews with professional athletes, especially those who are achieved things, because I feel like you can learn a lot just by listening to Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Tiger Woods talk about their mindset stuff. Or Muhammad Ali was great, Mike Tyson. But I'd have to go look up. I can go look up some of those stuff I had read, and I can post that somewhere if that something. But off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's been a few years since I've looked into that stuff.
Alrighty, so follow John Drake, and he will post.
That guy's from my kingdom, so I can get in contact with him.
Oh, perfect. There you go, Ulrich. Got you started. This is from Paris. Hi, Paris. Is that our Paris? Paris Simonson?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our Paris. Hey, Paris. All right. Question for both of you. Have you ever reached a hard frustration point in your path? If so, what did you do to evaluate it and get through it? Whoever wants to go first.
You go ahead. I've talked a lot.
Master Lyon.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I always tell people to, if you get to a point where you're frustrated with something, or you get to a point where you are, we call it plateauing too, but if you get to that point where you're plateauing, go right back to your basics. From the ground up, start with your footwork, go through everything. And then when you get to the point where you're a little bit more comfortable, drop what you're doing and try something new. Like, absolutely go after something new, and don't worry about your fight game right away. Don't worry about who you're killing and who you're not killing and why you're not killing them. That point where you're sitting there and you're frustrated with something. It could be one particular thing, or it could be a set of things. Always go back to your basics, and then attack it. Attack it from a different angle. I got a lot on that, but I don't want to take up a ton of time. I guess one of the best examples I have is one of the best examples I have for me personally is I struggled a lot with my offhand weapon. Not offhand defensive, but having an offhand dagger, or having an offhand weapon. I struggled quite a bit with that for a little while, and it came to the point where I just couldn't do it. I had to drop it, and I had to go look for other things to do, like buckler or cloak or whatever. And it wasn't really any one person, but by watching other people and learning to adapt other styles with my dagger, that's how I got back to it. So I started at the basics, and I went back up, and I started learning new things. I picked up new things, and Paris knows this. It's my bread and butter. He knows this. We've had a few go rounds, him and I. So that's one of the things. That's what helped me get through my frustration, was to just drop everything, and learn my basics, drop what I thought I knew, and then get to it in a different angle, different way to do it. And it helped me to process my frustration a little bit better.
Okay. Master Drake.
Yeah, I've had a couple of plateaus, and I feel like the best way to break out of them is to travel, is to fight. Go, if you can, go fight at go to a different fighter practice, different barony, even if you can, go to a different kingdom and fence people completely different. And you'll learn a lot about the way your style, the system you're fighting from. You'll test it against other people. You'll get different advice from completely different people from completely different backgrounds. And it's super fun to get that experience. If you can afford it, or you can figure out how to do it, or carpool with people or whatever, but go and travel, or go to a big wars are great, because you can get a fence from people all over the country, in the known world, and fight all sorts of people. That's the best way to break out of those plateaus, in my opinion.
That's a pretty good one. I like that. We're gonna. I will go ahead and into his next question. So his second question was, as well as most. Is that what you saw more? Oh, okay. What is the most amusing style of fencing that you've seen, and what is the style that you've seen more of? I think that's what he's trying to ask.
Style is in weapon style, or style is in.
Let's go with both.
I've definitely seen people use some different sock puppets and offhand, stuffed animals and things like that. It's kind of amusing.
Sock puppets and stuffed animals.
There's I don't know if this is amusing, but it's interesting. There's a guy from the East Kingdom who fights with two. He uses they're basically long swords with rapier blades on them. So they have 10-inch handles and then 45-inch blades, and he holds them by the pommel and he fights with two of them.
Yep.
His name goes by Will Death. It's a super unique style. It's very difficult to fight against. He has a very well thought out process too. It's kind of like he's boxing with his swords. I don't know if that's exactly amusing. It's definitely amusing in a sense that I love fighting him because it's very different than like anyone else, and so it kind of like sparks that like kind of makes the brain tingle about like, oh, this is fun to try. And he does it very well. He's very good. One of the great fencers in the SCA too. So that's my answer.
That's interesting. And you, Lyon?
Style, I mean, like I could say format like Sword and Dagger, Sword and Cloak, but I guess this is where I would say style, like a lot of people I've noticed are using more something along the lines of the period masters now that we have more translation than we used to.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I see someone using something from Capoferro, I'm like, oh, that's what they're using. You know what I mean? So style-wise, the thing that I've seen the most of is definitely Capoferro, Fabris. And then for amusing, I'm always just going to say when people do double daggers or daggers. It's
double daggers.
Yeah, double daggers. It's been done.
I think
it's
double
a train
cloaked.
wreck.
Double cloaks.
So, yeah, I've heard of that one, and I'm just, if you could get it just draped over their head just right and they can't see, you win.
I suppose. I don't know what grappling rules are in England, but
yeah,
just
no.
naked
the double dagger, the daggers. To me, that's the most amusing. It's not amusing when I'm fighting it. It's amusing to watch when I'm not fighting it because it is a train wreck. I don't. When it comes to fighting it, I don't even. It's just out of my head. So it's just amusing all the way around.
Oh, this was an interesting one. Let's see if I can read it. I've known Lyon Warden for almost 30 years now. You should ask him what his favorite green foam offhand pairing object was. From Todd.
Oh my God. Todd, I hate you. But I love you. Do you want to ask me this? I mean, do you really want to ask me this? Because there's a whole story to it. I don't want to tell that.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
I'm
going to try and make it short, just for the purpose of this, just to entertain Todd at least. Many years ago, at our local event, before we were a barony, we decided to do a barroom brawl. We found a bunch of foam, and we made beer bottles, and wine bottles and stuff like that we could throw at each other during the fight. And some smart ass, he who will not be mentioned, decided to carve a giant green penis out of some of the foam.
I saw it coming.
Yeah, no, none of us saw that coming. So this thing made it under the rapier field as a parrying device, and it made it into people's cars as a joke, and it was. There was a couple of years where it was just all over the place, and the punchline to this joke is a good friend of mine who's no longer with us. Him and I were driving home one night, and he was also in the SCA with us. His car was just loaded with weapons, edged weapons, spears, axes, swords, just armor, his armor, my gear. Just this whole car was just covered in everything. We get pulled over, obviously. And the cop comes up, license and registration, please. And he's looking through the car and everything. And he's really nice about it and everything. And, of course, me and my buddy were kind of freaking out and stuff like that because there's just all these edged weapons in the car. Cop comes back and gives my friend a warning for, going too fast or whatever. And he says, and during the course of this, we had explained to him, we're with this group called the SCA, and the cop's giving the license and registration back to my friend. He's like, well, okay, I can understand like all the swords and axes and armor and stuff like that, but what's with the giant green penis in your back window?
That's great.
Yeah. So that thing it made it all over the place. So Todd, thank you very much. There you go.
I like it.
That's all I got.
Oh my God.
That's all I got.
Right. Back to a serious question. Cameron Fulmer wants to know, how do you feel about spears and how do you see them affecting the game? Master Drake, let's start with you.
The rapier spears they're a lot of fun. They'll completely change rapier melees if we do them when we use them in rapier melees, because the range, and I think that they might be a little bit overpowered based on the rule set we have for rapier, because we can't counter them the same way you can on the heavy field because of the physicality limitations we have. I think what will probably happen is we'll have some melees they'll be allowed and some melees where they're not going to be allowed, kind of the way heavy fighting does with combat archery. So like, this is a war point that you have spears, and this war point you don't have spears.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll be fun and they'll be interesting to play with. I think they're very safe, and they're definitely interesting. And I think it'll be cool to see how they affect the game. So,
Master Lyon.
Well, it's going to sound kind of strange, but I'm not fully on board with the spears myself during melee. I think in a lot of ways we need to change how we're doing melee for rapier in the first place. I don't want to get into all of that, but I see the spears changing. I see the spears changing how we do rapier melee, but I also see spears bringing in other weapons, like other ranged weapons, like the rubber band guns, RBGs. The one that I like the most right now is rapier archery. We've been testing that out, and to me that kind of overshadows the spear. It brings a different element altogether, but it fits with using spears in rapier. So that to be said, if someone brings a bunch of spears, then you obviously should have someone that has some ranged weapons. So the more you pick up the spears, the more the ranged weapons will pick up, and it'll escalate. Go for it.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I was gonna say that'll help. I think, mitigate the spears.
Yeah, that'll escalate the game, but in a way, to me, that's when you bring something in that's new like that. How like John Drake was saying earlier, it's going to be. It'll be new for a while. It'll be great, but then what happens after? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time.
It's a legitimate SCA arms race then. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cavalry.
Oh God.
Not really.
But it would still be fun to watch. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to see that?
So I do have a horse that you can shoot off the back of.
Nice.
And I don't think a rubber band gun would be any problem, because you could fire legit firearms off this dude. So I think that would be pretty cool.
I happen to know someone who, she's probably watching this right now, thinking about raiding one of my boxes to grab an RBG to fire it off the back of her horse the next time she's on him, if she's watching this.
Ride by, just
never know. Just flap. Just never know.
Oh, let's see. What's this next one? Oh, okay. This one came from where to go? I can't find it. I lost it. From David something. Where'd it go? Yeah, David Garcia. What is the best advice to give someone from the chivalric side, from the heavy fighting side, wanting to cross over? Master Lion, you go first.
Oh, see, why do you got to go with me first here? No, okay. The best advice that I could give for someone crossing over is,
Just do it.
yeah, just do it. Every time I've seen a crossover, there's hesitation on. So if someone has been fighting armored for a long time and they've been known to have been fighting armored and they come over to rapier, I see the hesitation on some of the rapier fighters' faces, like, oh God, they're gonna drill me. Like that hilt is gonna be in my body, or they're gonna knock me out with a flat snap and it's gonna come right through my mask, or there's gonna be a wrap shot on my backside with a metal sword, and just the thought of that, you can see them kind of cringing. And so the best advice is honestly, like we practice lightest touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the best advice I could give someone crossing over from armored to rapier is figure out your measure, figure out your range, and you won't have to worry about how hard you're hitting somebody. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Beyond that, just keep in mind that lightest touch. I mean, I've gotten bruises in rapier that you would think that I was on the armored field. So I'm not saying you can't get bruised. I'm just saying that you're not going to get walloped as bad.
Yeah.
So that whole thing about measure.
Yeah. I've seen a heavy fighter that was transitioning into rapier line up in that A-frame with a shield with a little buckler, and you saw the rapier fighter like, oh man, and then he goes to flinch for it, he goes, ah! And then he just goes boop, and just bops him right in the mouth. It was it was so comedic and just perfect. I could just imagine me doing something like that, just lining up like that and be like, all right, let's see what happens. Master Drake.
Block your feet.
Block your feet. Yes.
That's my snarky answer.
Yes.
But in some ways that's make it a little more serious. Definitely one of my go-tos against a crossover is hit him below the knee, because they're not used to it, right? Because in heavy fighting, you don't have to block your knee and below. So a foot shot, or if we're in cut and thrust, cut to the calf, heavy fighters will block, their shield will go down to their knee, and they won't block lower than that. So block your feet. But really, the way to defend your feet is footwork. And I think that rapier fighters tend to have slightly better footwork than the average heavy fighter, I think.
I'd agree.
High-end fighters are high-end fighters on both fields, right? And they're remarkable at everything, right? So, but grab an average rapier fighter and average heavy fighter, I think the rapier footwork is gonna be a little better, because we don't really have a big shield, and the calibration is lower. You have to be so cognizant of the range, and so footwork and measure would be the things that I think. And if you work on those things, it'll make your heavy fighting better. So if you go back over, that'll be tuned in. So that'd be my. How does one
new to rapier just assume their measure? Practice?
I don't. Yeah.
What do you think, Master Drake?
I assume they mean like, how do you judge it? Based on that question, it's got to be practice. There's a great drill that I was taught by a master defense. Actually, he's also a Duke Miguel. Where you stand in front of someone and they lunge at you, and you don't parry, you just retreat. And the idea is but you can't over retreat. So like if they hit you, you fail the drill. But also if you retreat more than like a few inches, you've also failed. You have to just step just out of measure to learn to judge someone else's measure. And you can do a similar drill where you're like against a Pell or against an opponent, where you just stand where you think you're just at the edge of range, and then lunge and check. And you can do that. Doing those drills will help a lot. And then sparring, a ton of sparring.
Yeah. I think my answer on that would be to never assume. because rapier fighters are the biggest fucking liars ever.
That's a good answer too. It's a good answer.
That is a pretty good answer. I like
Yeah.
that.
So just A, never assume, and B, what John said.
Especially with those
What I
people
got.
that have those long noodly arms.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. Mr. 6'2" with them long noodly arms, them stretchy arms. Oh, where's this other one? Oh, here was a really good one that I enjoyed from David Recorder. Can you give a piece of advice on the subject of recruitment or retention to the rapier community?
Who do you want?
Yeah.
Master Drake, go for it.
Okay. So this is kind of the $1 million question right now in the SCA, I feel like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we definitely need to do, the whole SCA needs to do a better job of just being a little more welcoming to newcomers and making it easier for people to come in. And I think that we need to police our own a little bit, and not so much like, because there's the super bad actors that, like, the people who are like creepy and just not great people that we just need to get rid of. But there's also then, like, maybe this person means well and they're actually a great person, but maybe don't let the person who's just going to talk for 20 minutes at the new person and not let them, like, they're just going to co-opt all their time and just won't shut up. Maybe try to make sure that you're letting those people not overwhelm people who are coming in, and make sure they're enjoying themselves. And I think we really it's all about, we need to make friends with the people who are coming in and not just talk at them. And then we also have to make sure we're not just talking at them and overwhelming them. And then we have to make sure that our friends are overwhelming them with information and not letting them go. Because I think we've probably all been there, trapped by someone in the SCA who just won't stop talking to us, right?
Yeah.
And we all got through that and we didn't care. But I think that drives away some new people, and we need to like kind of keep an eye on that.
That's a good point. Master Lyon?
I think for bringing people in, one, we have to let them know, and this is kind of the important one too, is for me, is letting them know that what they're walking into, despite the fact that there's actual fighting going on, it's a safe environment. Letting them know that when they put on armor, and they whether it's armor, for armored fighting, or if it's rapier, letting them know that they're safe, but also letting them know that them walking around in our community is safe. Period. That there's no messing around when it comes to people being jerks in our community or talking your ear off or anything like that. And then as far as retention, yes, the policing idea, and this retention will go right back to what I was saying earlier about leading by example. And that idea that the manners and the courtesy and the chivalry that you have in the SCA, you take out into the real world with you. If we impress that upon people who are new and coming in, they understand that, when they understand that, they walk out knowing, hey, this is genuine. This is what these people are about. They're not, they're not messing around. They're not telling a tale.
Okay. I really like that. Definitely. I'm sure a lot of people know those people that are just bad talkers, or they just sit there and just word vomit on everybody. And they're bad for newcomers. And if you don't know anybody that does that, it's probably you. It's probably you.
I think we all do it.
So unfortunately, we are right out of time, but we're a little over time. But I think we're going to go ahead and do Annora's favorite question. We've asked it at the end of every single episode because she absolutely loves it. How prepared has the SCA made you for the zombie apocalypse? Master Lyon, you go first.
Very prepared.
Very prepared. Okay.
Yeah, I love making face and head shots with 3 feet of steel. I'm out of range. It's right to the brain. one and done. Don't even have to worry about a double tap. I can walk away. So I'm good.
Ooh, doesn't even double tap. That's ballsy, man. That's really ballsy.
I know.
Oof. Okay. Master Drake, how do you feel?
I think he has a really good point there with the headshot thing. But I'll say what one of my fencing teachers used to point out is that if our rapier armor is puncture resistant, it's probably bite proof. So, have a rapier that can stab someone, puncture
That's a
resistant
good
armor.
point.
Yeah.
We're good to
Yeah.
go. I think.
Yep. I like it. There we go. Yay!
Yeah. Cameron Fulmer says we got a badass over here. Doesn't need the double tap. All right. Thank you so much, everybody who joined us in the comments. The comment section was on fire today. I loved it. Thank you so much to Master Lyon and Master John Drake. I had a blast. It was so wonderful having you guys on. We definitely have to do this again because there's still tons of questions that we didn't even get to. So
I'm game whenever.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you
for having us.
All right. Everybody have a wonderful night.